Greetings, Woozy. This guy just keeps coming up with the goods, doesn't he? This is the 10th Sven Jamski I've taught you lot, and it's been the hardest to play, for me anyway. Like many of Sven's tunes, these days features a single chord progression repeated for the duration. And this one is simply the first three chords that many of us were ever taught. C, G, and F. They were the first three I learnt, although it might have been a G7. Simple enough? But hang on, that's not how I just played it. No, it is not. And that's why this one has taken me a few weeks to get right. For a start, Sven has made a couple of tiny adjustments to those chord voicings. The C is a C over G, pretty common shape, and he adds the sixth to the F chord. Again, it's not exactly something he's lifted out of the Thelonious Monk handbook for weird sounding chords. The thing that has this riff sounding so juicy is the finger picking. And that's why this took me quite some time. Firstly, to figure it out, because the production is wonderfully dreamy and swishy as usual, and that makes it really difficult to pick out the notes. And secondly, to learn how to play it, because it's not a picking pattern that is naturally within my repertoire. This hurt my brain a little bit. So let's have a look at what's going on here. The finger picking here is a form of Travis picking, but not your normal alternating bass pattern. You know, normally the bass alternates between the root note and the fifth, or you might add the third in as well. So it would hit the C note on beat 1, 3, 4. That sort of thing. Obviously that doesn't sound anywhere near as cool for this type of dream pop as what Sven has provided us with here. This one kind of does the opposite. It begins on the G. So it's a C chord, but the first note is a G, then a C. That put me off right from the get-go. And the same inverse pattern occurs on the F chord. So instead of playing the F note first, then the C, it goes... In fact, it hits the F note before the bar starts, anticipating that F chord. So all those little things contribute to this awesome sounding song. The next thing that isn't simple is the melody that Sven is playing over those confusing bass notes. Most of the melody notes are played in 2 octaves, but not all of the notes. But there are at least 2 or 3 or 4 guitars playing that intro, that guitar pattern in this song. I've grabbed a nylon string today because I'm pretty sure it sounds to me like one of the main ones in the mix is a nylon string guitar, but you can hear his, chorused out electric guitar playing along with a very similar pattern. So it could simply be that Sven played variations on each instrument that we're hearing in together there in that mix. Anyway, let's break it down bar by bar and see if we can nail it. Chord shapes for this whole thing are a C over G, then he's going to a G like that, so just a standard G chord. I'm just leaving the first finger out because my third finger is already on that G note there. And then the F, I think he's probably using his thumb over the top, which we've seen in other Still Woozy riffs. And what that does is allows me to reach over and use my little finger for that sixth to take the D note on and off there, the 3rd fret on the B string. But what we have to remember is to bring our 3rd finger up to the C note here for the alternating bass notes. So there's our 3 shapes. The C over G, that's 3, 3, 2, open, 1, open. G, 3, 2, open, 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 3. And F, thumb over the top, 1, 2, muted string, 2, 3, 1. Or 1, 1 at the end. So let's have a look at the bass line for that first bar. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So there's an open E in there as well, which, fits within the tonality of the song. I was holding the chord shapes there, but to make it really clear which notes I'm playing, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, that's our bass line for our first bar. The melody for the first bar, I'm playing 2 E notes, one here within that C chord, open E string there, and then a D string by itself. That's what I mean by, it sounds to me like the melody is in octaves and then suddenly not. So I'm playing that with my first finger. Then the thumb goes to that next bass note. The last note of melody in the first bar is that D note there, which happens with the last bass note of the bar. So there's our first measure. Second measure. Okay, the bass line in the second measure, so we're already on an F note on the end of measure 1. It basically goes like this. I'm just going to show you really simply. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So it's the same 2 notes for most of the bar. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Last note is a quick open E. So a melody in the second bar, we've already hit that D note, that 3rd fret on the B string on the last beat of the first bar. And then it does a 1st fret, a C note, and 2nd fret on the G string, an A note. So that's the melody. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's all he's doing over that. So together, 3, 4. 3, 4. So we're into measure 3, which the bass line is like the first bar again, with one slight difference. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So the only difference is on beat 4, instead of open E, we're just back to the G note there. So the C chord, G chord, F. Again, hitting that F just before, on the end of beat 4, just before the next measure begins. The melody for that bar is also the same as the first bar with one small difference. Those E octaves again, 1 and 2. This time, we've got that little high G note, 3rd fret on the E string on top. Right as we hit that bass note on the B note there. Those 2 notes sound beautiful together. Obviously they're all notes that are in the G chord. Then that very last part of the bar. So I'm hitting the A note on the 2nd fret of the G string as I hit that F note with my thumb. Okay, measure 4. So we're already on that F note. This time there's nothing on beat 1. He just sustains for half a beat until the end after beat 1. So the bass line for this bar, starting on the 4 and from the previous measure, 3, 4. So a little bit slower, 3, 4 and. It's again those 2 notes with an open E on the end, the very last thing in the bar, but this time there's less alternating going on. So the melody goes like this, 3, 4. It's just that A note that we're already on and the C note, which is 1st fret B string. 3, 4 and. Now that last little bit there is one of the things in this song that makes me think I'm missing something. I'm not playing it the way Sven did, because it sounds like he's doing it like that. A little slide from the A to the G. So it could be that it's an overdub. It could be that he played that part in a different position. It could be the whole thing was tuned differently. Anyway, so let's put those 2 bits together in that measure. 3, 4. Let's do that bit super slow. 3 and 4. Yeah. So that's a tricky little bar, just because again, it's a very different pattern to what you'd normally expect. All right, then we're back to a pattern the same as the start, though. So the fifth measure is exactly the same as the first measure. We repeat that. The sixth is similar to the second measure, starts the same, but then changes a bit. So the bass line goes, again, we're already on that F note from the previous measure. So 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So it's just, the whole thing is just those two notes, the F and the C, but at the start of the bar, they're inversed, C, F, C, F, F, C, F, C. So it turns around when that melody comes in. So yeah, so the melody for that bar is, we're already on the sixth, the third fret of the B string, which is a D note at the start. So 3 and 4. So again, 3 and 4. So I'll put those two parts together. 3 and 4. So you'll notice I changed back to the C chord shape for those last two, even though I could stay with that F chord shape. But I imagine that's what's going on. I imagine that's what it sounds like it does. And then we're ready to go for the start of the next measure. So the next measure is a bit different. And again, a very tricky little bit. So it starts the same with that bass line. But then for the very last bit of the bar, sliding up to the 5th fret. So G, C, G, C, G, B, D. 5th fret on the A string. Then back down to that F note again, anticipating the next bar. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So it's quite tricky to get there in time. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So down to that F note on the and of 4. Now the melody for this part is more of a chordal part. So instead of the octaves, we've got those two notes out of the C chord. The 2nd fret on the D string, which is an E note, and that C note, 1st fret on the B string. So same rhythm, but instead of, we're going, and then that's exactly the same, putting that open D string in there. Then what I'm hearing is when the bass note goes to the B, the melody goes to a B, and they both slide up to Ds. So bass note going up to the 5th fret, as I said, melody going up to the 3rd fret. So they're both playing an octave of D. Like that. Then straight back onto that F6 chord for the and for the very last part of that penultimate bar. So the final measure, again, we're already on these notes. This one's probably the easiest bar of the whole thing. So that's like 4 and 1. There's nothing on beat 1. Then on the and of beat 1, back to a normal F chord, taking that finger off. 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So all he's doing there is playing an upbeat F major 7 chord, open E string, after every beat. But there's one little snippet that you got to sneak in there, which is the bass line. The thumb comes off, if it is indeed his thumb, comes off and back on. So 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So I'll do that again. 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So all together it's like 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and that's it. Then it repeats. Then it's probably looped, but that's it. That's what's going on there. All right, if a lifetime of figuring out guitar parts by ear has taught me anything, it's that if something seems too hard or too tricky or too convoluted, then I'm probably doing it wrong. I've probably gotten it wrong. So I can't help wondering if Sven did this one in an open tuning, or something. Sven, help us out, mate. Am I on track here, or am I missing something? Anyway, while we're here, let's get this pattern looped up and add a couple of other very cool parts into the mix. Nice easy bits that you can have some fun with. All right, firstly there's this warbling melody line. And then there's sweet triads. So here's a sneaky little bit of theory for you. Okay, that first triad is just a C chord. It's just the bottom 3 strings of a C chord moved up 12 frets. So 12, 13, 12. Okay, that's fine. Nothing tricky there. The second one is an A minor chord, A, C, E, bottom 3 strings of that. But because the music has reached the F chord by this point, it's actually an F major 7. So yes, A minor plus F equals F major 7. Okay, the next chord is, I guess, you know, it looks like a D sus 4 or a G add 9 perhaps. But that's back over the C chord, so adding those 3 notes to a C gives us a C6-9, which is a beautiful sounding chord. And then finally, the last triad is another C chord. It's just another C chord, C, E, G. It's part of that one this time. But the music has reached the F chord again by this point. So F plus a C chord gives us an F major 9. Beautiful sounding chord to finish it up on. All right, please thumb in a like for me. And if you're feeling lovely enough to subscribe, ring that bell so you don't miss out next week. Thank you.